Cash flow is such a painful thing to deal with when it's an issue. And the reality is that, in my personal opinion, almost 100%, I won't say 100% because that's unrealistic, but a huge percentage, like 85, 90%, I'm being conservative, we do have the ability to control our cash flow. I guarantee you, I don't care what type of contractor you are, there's something called the cash gap. And the cash gap is basically the difference between the accounts payable and the accounts receivable. You want this gap to be as big as possible. And one of the things that forecasting your cash flow allows you to do, it allows you to understand and start predicting proactively what your cash gap's going to be. And the more that you can predict it, the more that you can get control of it, the more you're going to be in control of your cash flow. All right, rockstars, it is go time. I'm super pumped about today's session, and I'll tell you why. Because one of the biggest challenges that we tend to have as contractors at this time of the year, it's too bad that it's the case, but for a lot of contractors out there, it is cash flow. So we're going to get right into this. I'm going to explain to you why that is. I'm going to give you guys some no bullshit insights and tips on not just from a principal perspective, but how one of our champion CEOs, Cam McPhee, was able to apply these strategies and just crush it out. I'll get more into detail on that in just a second. Everybody, if you don't know me by now, I'm Andrew Houston, founder of Profit for Contractors, CEO of Profit for Contractors. And look, we are all about, like, what is Profit for Contractors? It's to get you guys to be more profitable, right? To help contractors become more profitable. But why? To get your profits to pay for your freedom, to really be able to benefit from being an owner of a contracting business, getting more freedom to do the shit that you want to do, getting more control of your business, to live the lifestyle you want and make the money you want, but truly become a champion CEO, not just a champion CEO of your business and in control of it and doing what you want with it, but also in control of your life. Okay, champion CEO. People think as soon as you say the word CEO, they think it's just about business. It's not, man. You didn't get into business just to be in business. You got into business to get something out of it, right? And in my opinion, it's three things. Like I said, control, right? Freedom, do the things you want to do, how you want to do them, and make the money that you want so you can live the lifestyle you want. So that's what it's about. If what we cover off today, if cash flow isn't something that's of interest to you, you know, if you're not interested on how Cam, you know, what the strategies were that Cam applied to protect himself from having cash flow issues, from almost, you know, going broke, running out of cash, even though, get ready for this, he was highly, highly profitable in the work that he was doing, then you can jump off. All right. So why are we here outside of what I just talked about as far as the purpose of PFC? Guys, we're here to help you guys go from, you know, scraping, you know, the bottom of the barrel, to being able to have, you know, not just some money in the bank, but ideally millions of dollars in your bank account, or millions of dollars worth of value, okay, from your business, that you can actually do the things that you want to. All right. So maybe for you guys, you're going to be excited about being able to get better control of your cash flow, be able to see the bank account go up. How many people as a contractor, right? How many of us as owners, let's face it, have dealt with or are currently dealing with cash flow issues? And like, what are some of the symptoms? Like, this is something for you to listen in on, even though it's going to be short training. It's something for you to keep listening in on if you're struggling paying the bills, if you're not seeing the bank account going up and it's just a constant roller coaster. I mean, George, I don't know if you can relate to this. And by the way, anybody listening in on the Facebook Live, put in your comments, guys. Let us know what your thoughts are. Put in any questions that you have so we can try and help you as best as possible, because that's why we're here. But, you know, cash flow is such a painful thing to deal with when it's an issue. And the reality is that, in my personal opinion, almost 100%, I won't say 100% because that's, you know, unrealistic, but a huge percentage, like 85, 90%, I'm being conservative, we do have the ability to control our cash flow. I guarantee you, I don't care what type of contractor you are, I don't care where you are. I don't know, George, where the heck you are. Okay, what kind of tradie you are, our contracting business. But these are principles, guys, that we've got to apply. No matter how big, no matter how small, no matter how many guys you got, no matter where you're located, because cash is king. It fucking does not matter. The banks don't care what type of trade you are. They don't care how many employees you got. They don't care, what you do, except that if you can't pay your bills, right, then, they're going to be coming after you, or other people are going to be coming after you. It is our responsibility, and this is the last of my rant, then we'll get into this. It is your responsibility as a champion CEO to control your cash flow, okay? And if you're just winging it right now, okay, and if I'm offending you too freaking bad, I'm telling you these things because I care about you. You've got to put things into place to control your cash flow. And even if you got okay cash flow, you've got to constantly be looking at ways to improve it, because cash is the gas to the business. All right. And we'll also talk about today how, profitability is super critical, but you can actually be profitable on jobs and still run out of cash. All right. So what are some of the things? What are some of the hows behind this? Okay. What are some of the cash eaters? Let me be more specific that you guys want to avoid. You see me looking over. I'm just looking at some of the points I've got. I got a lot to cover. So here's some of the things, guys, that you gotta seriously, I'm telling you gotta watch out for. Okay. And as I go through them, don't get stuck in the trap, the I know trap. All right. I've dealt with this with my teenagers, even when they were younger, right? The I know, right? Like, hey, Mikey, when was the last time you changed your oil? I know, Dad. I know. Supposed to change my oil. Yeah. Next thing you know, he's got engine problems, right? Because he didn't check his oil. Okay. Don't get into the I know. If there's something I cover off and it's something that you might think you already know, open up your mind to it. Okay. Go, hey, that's interesting. Maybe you've heard it before. Try the method. Psychologists talk about it, about that's interesting, which is don't be doing the I know thing. You're not going to get freaking anything out of it. You can always learn more even about the stuff that you know of. Okay. And then there's going to be stuff that I'm going to be covering off that some of you guys might be like, man, that's a little bit too much or a little bit too complicated. It's okay. I'll show you guys that you can get help understand these things a little bit further before I finish up. So let's take a look at these things. All right. So if I'm looking at this, one of the biggest things, okay, as far as the eaters of when it comes to cash flow, guys, is overhead costs. The next one, okay, is we underprice our jobs. Now, there's a whole bunch of them. There's like about 11 of these. I'm just going to highlight the top ones, right? And this one here, unpaid invoices, or otherwise known as our accounts receivable. Okay. Any one of these three can crush your business. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about some of the methods that Cam applied to his contracting business that allowed him to make, literally, guys, I'm not shitting you, it allowed him to make millions in profits, allowed him to address his cash flow. We've got a whole podcast on this. I think the team will put it in there for you guys where I'm actually interviewing Cam so you can actually hear him talk about this stuff. But some of the key things, guys, that when we're looking at this, let's just talk about this guy right here. This guy right here first. All right. One of the biggest things when we look at this, as far as overhead costs, guys, I'm even going to just take a look at forget overhead costs. I'm just going to go with overall costs. And what do I mean? One of the biggest challenges that you guys have during the busy season, and here's the big problem. You got too many big jobs. In other words, we don't have a balanced portfolio. If you don't have a balanced portfolio of jobs, what ends up happening, guys? Okay. And you know this as I'm saying this, but then just say it to yourself, like, what am I doing about it? Let's say that, there's something called not to get too geeky, there's something called the cash gap. And the cash gap is basically, really simply put, the difference between, okay, the accounts payable and the accounts receivable. Okay. You want this gap to be as big as possible. Well, what ends up happening, guys, when we have too many big jobs, okay, is our cash gets held up, okay? And now what starts approaching is this cash gap starts closing, okay? It starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to the point that, and this is where you run out of cash, is when it flips, okay? It's when this guy goes on the other side, okay? And this guy over here, the accounts payable, crosses, so there's no more gap, and we are actually in a negative cash flow position, okay? The greater that this is, the greater the what? The greater the cash flow is that you have. Now, if your accountant, don't get sidetracked here, Andrew, I'm just going to mention this. If your accountant's not sitting down with you and talking to you about your cash gap, if you don't even know, it's the first time you've ever heard it, you seriously need to have a sit down with your accountant, okay? Because you want to start forecasting your cash flow, okay? And one of the things that forecasting your cash flow allows you to do, it allows you to understand and start predicting proactively what your cash gap's going to be. And the more that you can predict it, the more that you can get control of it. We're going to come back to this in a second. The more you can control that, the more you're going to be in control of your cash flow, okay? So let's focus in on increasing the cash gap. And one of the biggest things you want to do, guys, is you want to have a variety when we look at, if we look at your total sales, you want to have a variety of big, medium, and small jobs, okay? Why? Because the bigger the job, guys, the more cash flow that you have to put out, okay? So in other words, the more that you have to spend in material costs, the more you have to pay your guys. Your guys aren't going to wait. You got a big job. The job doesn't pay you for 90 to 120 days. They're not going to be like, hey, man, no big worries. You don't need to pay me, man, until you get paid. Guys, we all know that that's not how it works, okay? Our guys want to get paid. They want to get paid right now. George, you tell me if I'm right or wrong, but our suppliers want to get paid. Everybody wants to get paid. So there's a balance, guys, especially when it comes to suppliers. You can usually get terms with your suppliers of up to 45 days. I would advise that you increase those terms, higher than lower. And the reason for that is that you want to have a balance between when you're going to get when you're going to receive your money versus when you have to pay your money. Okay. One of the best things that you can do, guys, is you want to have a balance of work. Okay. If all you have right now is big jobs, I guarantee you, you're going to struggle with cash flow. Okay. Because you're always going to be paying your guys, paying your suppliers, paying fucking everybody else before you get paid. And a lot of times that gap is what? Well, you're paying your guys every 2 weeks, right? And that job isn't going to pay you for 120 days. You now have basically, right, 120 days minus 2 weeks. So basically, a little over 90 days where you're going to have to be a bank. And guys, what we got to prevent here is what? Stop being a bank. You did not go into business to be a bank. You got into business to make money off the jobs that you do at a rate of which you get paid so that you don't have cash flow issues. So that when you're looking right now, you're probably in busy season or you got tons of quotes on your plate or it's a combination bladder. Guys, forecast the jobs that you got against your cash flow. And if you're getting too overwhelmed with like, man, how do I do this from a spreadsheet perspective and cash flow perspective? If your accountant's not able to help you out with this, just look at it from a day's perspective, okay? What do I mean? You want to have a balance, guys, of if we're looking at this and we're forecasting, let's say we're looking at, let's just say August, okay? We're looking at August. You want to have what we call here, profit for contractors, some form of a progress to profit board. That's one of the boards you want, okay? And you also want to have a sales board. The two feed each other. What do I mean? You want to lay out what is the work. So picture this like a spreadsheet. Okay? Here's the beauty of it. This one here is the work that we've got, or the work that we're doing. This is the work that we are going to do. Okay? You can do this super simple, guys. Get a whiteboard, draw it out, lay out, hey, I got this one job. It's going to be, 45 days. Then I'm going to invoice like right here, unless you're doing progress draws, which you should be doing. If you're not, okay, on these big jobs, man, you're going to be in trouble. So make sure if you're getting any new jobs, you're creating a contract that you got progress draws, so you're actually getting paid money along the way. Okay, but even when that's in place, if it's not in place, this is going to be 10x worse. But even if that is in place, majority of, when you're getting draws, the majority of the money gets paid at the end of the job. Okay. Now, if you got a whole bunch of jobs, they're really big jobs, and they're all ending in, this guy's ending in like 90 days. Let me just do this here. This guy's ending in 90 days. This guy's ending in 120 days. Guess what? You are having to support this cash throughout this whole cycle. That's being a bank. Now, let's change this up. And let's say that we got a difference of, we got a bunch of medium jobs in here. Okay. We got a bunch of, smaller jobs in here as well. Starting to look a little bit messy, but guess what? Guess what? It's not looking messy. We are getting paid big time. Okay. We are getting paid, guys. Okay. At each of the ends of these jobs. Well, it's even worse than that. We're getting paid when we go and invoice, guys. Typically, if your terms was 30 days, the job was 45 days, you invoice at the 45th day, it's another 30 days before they actually have to pay you. So now, instead of 45 days, it's actually 75. And a lot of us don't take that into account. The nice thing about these smaller jobs and medium jobs, right? These guys here, right? These guys here, right? These guys here, is we're getting the payment cycle as far as the money going out versus money going in increases our cash gap, guys. So be selective. Lay out the work that you've got. All right. And when you're looking at your quotes, ask yourself for your project board. Okay. We call it progressive profit board. What work do you have? Okay. How is that going to impact your cash flow? And then start asking yourself, what's the ideal work that I need? Okay. Well, I don't have enough small jobs. Well, and I don't have enough medium jobs. Well, then when you're looking at your stack of requests for quotes, cherry pick the ones, guys, that give you this balanced portfolio, okay, as best as possible. All right. This also changes your avatar, who your target audience is, who you're going after. All right. So, guys, this comes back to this guy right here. Okay. Overall costs. All right. So let's talk about the next one. So now that we talked about balanced portfolio, take your progressive profit board, just summarize this. Go to the work that you've been awarded that you haven't started yet. Maybe it starts over here. Maybe it starts over here. And now you can get a much bigger picture of the ideal work that you've got and what your cash position is going to be. And then that allows you, because you're able to look at the future, allows you to make better business decisions as to what work you accept. All right. The time to do this, I can't stress this enough, is now, because peak season is when we have the biggest cash crunch. And here's the thing. Next point is this. Even if you're profitable on those jobs, even if you're crush it 30%, 50%, fucking gross profit, even higher, that doesn't pay the bills. Okay. You don't get the profits into your hands until you get paid. Right. So just because you're doing profitable work does not address your cash flow issue. Okay. So let's go quickly to the next two. Okay. So guys, when you're looking at this from a perspective of underprice, okay, understand from a perspective of value that you bring expertise to the table. Okay. one of the greatest challenges that I see with contractors, they come to Profit for Contractors, that, hey guys, hey, can you help us? Got these cash flow issues. We start looking at how they're pricing jobs. And they've been pricing the work the same fucking way as they were pricing it, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and yet the costs of materials have gone through the roof. Here's the thing. If you're any good of a contractor, this is my opinion, some people might piss some people off here. If you're any good of a contractor, you've probably got a ton of work. But are you leveraging that? Okay, not just from a balanced portfolio perspective, but honestly, know your what? Your conversion rate. If your quote to win ratio, guys, is anything above 60 to 70%, and you have not increased your pricing, you're fucking crazy. Okay, so what we just earlier talked about allows you to do what? If you've got a ton of work, guys, in your portfolio, and you've got enough work for hey man, I'm fucking busy until September, October. Well, guys, then guess what? You get to leverage that to increase your pricing because you don't need the work at the same level you needed it when times were slow. You want to make sure, okay, you should only be winning, like in my opinion, 60% of your jobs. Why? Because if somebody comes to us, and a lot of people do, they go, man, we win like 80%, and they're proud of it. We win like 80% of the jobs we quote. I'm like, dude, you're missing out. You're probably one of the cheapest ones out there, right? You don't want to be winning all the jobs you quote. You want to be winning the ones, okay, at say 60%, win perspective, that maximizes the amount of profitability that you make, okay? Because here's the thing. We talked about earlier, you can be profitable in jobs and still run out of cash. But I'm going to tell you one thing. If you are not profitable in jobs and how you quote them, you're guaranteed to run out of cash. If you are not quoting a job to be profitable, you're not maximizing your profits, you are going to dramatically affect your cash flow, okay? Because you're only going to get the cash out of those jobs as a direct relation to the amount of profits you make, okay? So make sure, guys, you are pricing right. Make sure you're not pricing, and all excited that, with this mindset, like some contractors, man, we win like 80% of our quotes. Fuck, that's not good. That's bad, okay? Again, you want to win a certain percentage of your quotes so that you're maximizing your profit, and you're not winning 80% because of a bunch of tire kickers dealing with you because you're the lowest price. You want people dealing with you because you are the best value, okay? So make sure you're not underpricing, okay? And there's a whole bunch of steps to look at that. You want to know your break-even margin, okay, guys? You want to know your profit break-even margin is, all right? You want to make sure that you know how to calculate this, and we can get into this later on. But if you don't know for certain, number one, that you're quoting beyond break even and even what that amount is, you're in trouble. If you're winning too many jobs, anything above, like I said, 60, let's say 70 or 80%, you're underpricing. Okay. Make sure you're maximizing your profits, especially during hay season, during the busiest season. Okay. And then all those profits that you make, the extra profits you make during the slow season, you can use those, that money that you made, put a little bit aside to be a little bit more competitive during the slower periods. Okay. So that you can be more competitive, and yet, not that you're not going to quote jobs and not be profitable, but you can be a lot more competitive because you got this little buffer, of cash flow to basically subsidize some of those jobs that you want to win during the slower periods of the year. Okay. Last one. Let's talk about unpaid invoices. Let me ask you this. Do you look at your accounts receivable on a weekly basis? If you're not, then you're not aware. Or if somebody at your company, if you don't have someone looking at it on a weekly basis, then you're missing out. You want to know what's called your DSOs, which stands for your days outstanding, which is really, you want to have basically your accounts receivable. Let's call it like your average accounts receivable days, okay, outstanding. You don't want them to be on average 90 plus days, okay? Again, that's going to be the case if you're not doing this properly, okay? You want it to be as low as possible. That means you want people to be paying you as soon as possible. You want your accounts receivable average days outstanding of money that's owed to you, ideally in the 40s. Okay. The lower the number of days, the better. All right. And if you're not looking at your unpaid invoices, if you're not even on top of invoicing, even proactively, if you can, before the job is, finished, okay? This is why this progress billing really helps, okay? Because you're actually invoicing along the way, right? What will happen is you're going to have your money tied up. And when you go to collect that money, right, and you're invoicing somebody, imagine if somebody says to you, hey, man, you owe me 10 grand. Let's say the job is a, $50,000 job. And you invoice them for 10 grand, you're 25% hit. They're going to be way more receptive to paying you the 10 grand versus you wait at the end and go, hey man, I need $50,000 for the work that I did. Sounds pretty simple, right? But are you really leveraging your agreements to get progress billing in there? Okay. And next thing, are you invoicing, right away as soon as the job is done? How many contractors, they get so busy during busy season, they don't even invoice. They invoice like 20 days after the job is done. Guys, this is where this progress to profit board is absolutely key. Because if you got a whiteboard and you got all your jobs up there, and you got a little column at the end of the whiteboard right down here. Okay, picture this as one big whiteboard. Okay, a little bit messy right now. But over here we have, invoice. We know then, as soon as a job is done, somebody physically, could be you, could be your bookkeeper, somebody in the admin or whatever. We, put a little box and go, hey, invoice. If you're not invoicing, guys, as fast as possible, you're missing out massively, okay? You're missing out massively on collecting cash. You're missing out massively on increasing your risk of not getting paid, all right? And have a system for it, okay? So that's what I want to cover off with you guys today. All right. So just to be clear, you got to make sure that you got a balanced portfolio. That's this baby right here. You want to make sure you're not underpricing. Know what your conversion rates are. Make sure you're getting paid what you're worth. Don't be proud of winning 80% of your jobs, because I guarantee if that is the case, a chunk of those people you're landing are tire kickers, potentially people that aren't going to pay you, Class D clients. Make sure you've got a reasonable conversion rate so you're winning jobs based upon value. And on the unpaid invoices side, guys, make sure you got an awareness of a system to invoice as rapidly as possible, as soon as you can, okay? And make sure you've got a system for tracking, who hasn't paid you, so that you can make sure you follow up as quickly as possible on that. So guys, if you're watching this, all right, you guys want my help, you want some insights on how to take the business to the next level, you want to get some of these things put into play, you can totally do it. I'll just share with you guys in a second. Super simple how you can do that. Just DM me, the word profit. That sounds like a good word for today. And I'll ask you guys a couple of questions about your business, help you guys come up with an action plan, to seriously achieve your goals in 2023. And again, this is only for contractors that are watching this training. So if that sounds good, awesome. Sound good? And I think that's about it. So super simple. Share any questions you guys got. Bring it to the table. Let me know where you want to get some help. Let me know what kind of questions you want answered, maybe even struggling with. Don't be shy. This is a group that you guys can be, mask off. You're not the only one struggling with the challenges you've got. And again, don't do it alone. If you want to get some insights, systems, tools, and how to make this shit happen, put a plan together, an action plan specific to your business, just type in profits and we'll go from there. So that's it. That's all, folks. We'll see you guys on the flip.
Hey, Rockstars. Thank you for watching the No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. And if you're serious about growing and need help, click on the link below. Myself and my team would love to help and give you the necessary tools so you can take your contracting business to the next level. And remember, dominate, delegate, and deliver.